feeling lingers. If you want to create beautiful fluffy clouds and skyscapes that don't take forever to create, you are in the right place. Hi, my name is Althea and I'm the founder of paintingdreamscapes.com, and today I want to share with you my technique for painting beautiful skyscapes that make your artwork come alive. The first thing that I want to do is create the sky, so I'm going to go over this pretty quickly, but the first thing is just adding a gradient to the sky. So I'm adding dark blue to the top. I'm going to leave this lighter blue, and then I'm going to add an even brighter blue here to the bottom. And now that I have this, let me add a bit more there. I'm going to go ahead and blend them all together using the blending tool. Now if you're using a different program, and right now I'm using Paint Tool SAI, if you're using a different program that has a feature or a tool that already creates the gradient for you without needing to do it manually, by all means go ahead and use that. But the key here is to create a gradient in the sky, because when you have a sunny sky, the top of the sky will always be darker or more saturated than the horizon. So just keep that in mind when you're painting your skies to make it look more natural. I'm going to create a new layer, and I usually place them underneath the grass. And in this new layer, I'm going to select the white color. And you can see the settings for my brush here. Right now the size is going to change depending on the cloud. Now the best part of this tool is that even though I have the density to 100%, it will simply create a color, and then the more I paint on top, the whiter it becomes. So this is great to start creating some volume in our clouds from the get-go. Okay, so what I like to do here is I like to create different shapes and different parts of the cloud, so it's not going to always have the same size or the same shapes. I can change them so that maybe in some parts it really goes near to the horizon, and then in the rest it goes on top. And I'm using circular strokes here. I feel like it helps create a fluffier cloud, but maybe it's just me. So one thing that I like to do is I like having a part that is more pronounced in the cloud, so that there's one side of the cloud that is bigger than the rest. So maybe if I want this corner or this one to really be the center of attention, I can make it bigger. So there's no one size fits all. Play around with your clouds, because your clouds, your rules. Now you don't have to worry too much about the shape of the cloud from the get-go, because as you start shading it, it will start changing in shape as well. So the way the cloud looks in the beginning may be completely different to how it looks in the end. But play around with it until you feel happy. Okay, so now that we have the base shadow in place, we need to decide where we want the light source to be located in, so that we can start placing the shadows of the cloud. Now, where the light source comes from will determine where the shadows are placed and where the brightest and whitest parts of the clouds are. So this is very important, so that your clouds make sense in your artwork, along with the rest of the shadows of your artwork. So you want to decide where the light source is going to be placed, so that you can start adding the shadows and highlights to your clouds in a way that makes the most sense. So in this case, I think I'm going to choose the light source to be in the top left corner. Now we know exactly where the shadows and the highlights are going to be, because the places where the sun illuminates are going to have the whitest parts, and on the other hand, the parts that are outside of the light's range are going to be darker. Okay, so in that same layer, or if you prefer in a new layer, but we're going to start going over again with the same brush, and we're going to start painting over the clouds in the areas where we believe the light is hitting. And again, I'm using a circular motion to create these areas. So, and don't worry, you can always go over the lines and step outside. You don't have to stick to the lines or use any kind of opacity clipper or alpha or whatever that's called nowadays. You can just go and start like creating even more wider areas. So for example, here in this section, go ahead and create some more white space because that's a place where the light still reaches. And this part right here is a place where there's a shadow, so we can just leave that. So let's add even more and more whites to the cloud. Now, if you need some help because at some point the clouds or the brush stops painting whites, then you can create a new layer and start painting with more ease and just repeat the process. And when you're ready, what you can do is just merge the layer with the one below. So then you can blend the layers and the colors together. Now, here's a question that I hear often, like, what happens if you don't have a blending tool? Now, I mean, in Paint Tool SAI, you have this tool called Water, and what this does is that it blends everything together in a sort of blurry vibe. So you can see that it blends everything together, and there are no lines, it's just a blur, kind of like a Gaussian blur. Now, if you like this effect, you can definitely use this, but if you prefer a more natural blending style, what I do is in the marker tool, the same that we were using before, what I like to do is set the blending option to the maximum, and what this is going to do is that it's going to blend the colors that are in the layer sometimes. And then you can just start, and if you don't have anything of the sort, simply use your tool of choice, like maybe the airbrush or the pen, and just reduce the density or the opacity so that you're able to choose the colors that look similar. You can color pick and then paint and start blending the colors together by mixing them. So if I want to blend this white and this darker blue, I can choose a color that is in between them and start blending that way. So mixing the colors by using colors that are very similar to both to create a sort of gradient between both. Now let's go back to the marker, let's set the blending and persistence down again and choose the white color and continue creating the shape of the cloud. Now you wanted the areas that are hit by the sun the most to be the whitest. And then the rest should have a gradient from whiter to darker. Now for this you can start color picking colors from the sky that you had before, and you can start like placing some in the areas where the clouds should start to be a bit darker. And you can increase the blending to, I have it at 67% now, so that the color is not as strong as this one in the sky. But then you can start like adding darker colors where the cloud is darker. So again, if the light is here, this part of the cloud here should be darker. And to make it fluffy, you can also use, again, circular motions with your hand. and follow the shapes. Now here's a nice tip. The shadows will be most noticeable in the place where the brightest area and the rest of the cloud is found. So instead of this here being the darkest part of the cloud, this border right here should be the darkest. And then the rest have like a dark tone, but not as dark. So, for example, in this case, we can go ahead and use the water tool to kind of blend in some areas. Not everything. You definitely don't want to remove all of the texture from your cloud, but you want to soften some of the areas. So you can just go ahead and tap, 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 tap to blend some of the areas. Again, don't remove all of the texture. Play with this. And if you happen to remove all of the texture, then you can just go ahead and add some back in by painting some more. See, because this area right here, the sun is hitting this part, but not this one. So we can just darken that one a bit more. And we can use the shadows as well to create even more fluffiness.
The feeling lingers on every day of every month, wishing I just could forget about you. The weight upon my bones makes it harder to move on. Oh baby, don't think that I'll ever forgive myself for losing you, or for losing you. Left our love up on those dusty shelves. Can't forgive myself for losing you.
Once you have painted some shadows, what you can do is start noticing, okay, where is my cloud looking flat and where can I add some more life to it. So this area right here is starting to look a bit empty, so we can just go ahead and reduce the blending so that we get to paint a bit more, and then we can maybe create a little bump of a cloud here. And maybe connect it with this one softly. We can shade it a bit. You can, I always like color picking from nearby clouds so that the clouds have a sort of cohesive look to them. Again, remember that the line between the brightest and the rest of the cloud is where the darkest shadow should be. So play around with that and then blend in a little bit with some taps here and there. And then you can increase the blending on the marker tool to blend even more. And play around with it until you feel happy. This technique is not set in stone. It allows for a lot of freedom when it comes to painting, to use it because it's really fun. I really love painting with this technique and this brush. Now, of course, the more texture that you add and the more colors that you add, the more realistic your cloud will look like. But again, this is a matter of deciding how much time you want to put into it and how much you want to play with your clouds to create the best effect. And you know, if you're tight on time and you just want something that looks relatively nice, you could easily just stop it right here and it will still look pretty good. Now I have the brush the marker brush set to 100% blending, 0% persistence, and I'm further blending the darker areas right here. Now for example, the persistence brush or the persistence setting is very useful when you want to take what's in a corner. For example, instead of painting, you just want to like move the painting from other areas. So for example, if I want to move this white across, even though I have this blue setup, I can just move this white, and instead like I could move this darker blue. See, that's what it does. It's kind of a, like smudge setting of sorts, so that it moves the color nearby instead of painting with the color. But again, you need to set the blend to 100% so that it will not paint, so just keep that in mind. So I'm going to move this white color from here to create extra callouts right here.
Can't forgive myself for losing you.
And at this point, we can duplicate the background just in case, and then like merge the clouds with the sky. Okay, so one thing that I like to do once I reach this stage is to set the marker to 0% blending and 100% persistence, so that I can create sort of like windy parts in the clouds by using this as a smudge tool of sorts. So with those settings, what I can do now is just start creating sections in the cloud where it feels like there's more wind because the clouds are being, part of the clouds are being moved. And again, this tool with these settings, what it does is that it just moves the colors to the direction that you're brushing or moving the stroking. So softly just adding some here and there until you feel happy with the way it looks, and it can create an interesting effect in your clouds. Right, I hope you found this tutorial useful. Leave any questions in the comments below and I will get back to you ASAP, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!